Welcome back. You're still tuned into News and Views with myself, Salaila Makudir. 9:45 is at the time, and we're still having conversations around June 16, 1976, 50 years on, and commemorating the students of 1976 and what they were able to achieve. And I think we can all agree that they didn't wait for permission to be heard. They challenged authority and reshaped South African history for all of us. They forced the country to confront uncomfortable truths about inequality and about exclusion. But 50 years later, there's a new generation of young people that is asking whether its voice carries the same weight, the same kind of impact. South Africa's youth continues to face some of the highest unemployment rates in the world. Many are struggling to access good quality education, meaningful work opportunities. I think it's very, very paramount. And also positions of influence in politics. We are not seeing as many young people as I think all of us would like to. And it's not only in politics, also in business and then civil society. And while young people themselves are often, described as the country's future, there's arguments that remain. Around the exclusion that I spoke about, the young people not being in tables of decision making and how decisions that are affecting their lives ultimately are not made by them. And I think this is where I want this conversation to go this Youth Month, because the debate, I think we can all agree, is no longer simply about remembering the youth of 1976. It is about whether today's young South Africans are genuinely being empowered to lead, or they remain mere spectators in a future that they are expected to inherit. And we're going to be having that conversation. And joining us is the youth leader of the Jama-ah party, Fakir, and he'll be giving us his perspective on this, young people and leadership in South Africa, and the conversation around inclusion. Farid, salamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much for joining us. Really a pleasure chatting to you this morning.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing, Salah?
I'm well. Thank you so much. I want to jump right into it, Farid. 50 years after the Soweto uprising, there was a lot of jubilation, celebration, commemoration yesterday. But from your perspective, when the noise has, settled a bit, do you genuinely believe young South Africans are more empowered than previous generations before, or we are facing a different form of exclusion, whether it's in politics, it's in business, or it's in civil society, when it comes to decision making and how young people's futures are ultimately decided by other people and not themselves?
Yes, thank you for giving me the platform to have this discussion. I actually appreciate it a lot. I've actually been doing a lot of inroads in terms of trying to get a platform for the youth to empower themselves and to open a discussion up for employment with regards to the youth. So we are facing we're facing a very difficult time. Look, it's been 50 years since basically the Youth Day massacre that has happened and stuff like that. But we have to look at what is the political landscape and what's the societal changes that have been implemented since then. Because look, if we look at the timing, it's been 50 years since students protest for equal rights and access to education and things like that. And there needs to be an open discussion with the government to be able for them to establish, training initiatives and employment opportunities for the youth to empower them. So there's many underlying issues that are affecting the youth. Issues such as gangsterism, drugs, unemployment, GBV, and violence against children. And then also there's a lot of corruption and there's not enough accountability going around when it comes to decision making processes and implementing these types of programs for the youth. So there's a couple of things that we as the Al Jama-ah party have been trying to accomplish. So basically, I think one of the main underlying issues that we are facing is basically having to try to increase competencies amongst the youth particularly those that are based in like impoverished and crime
Yeah.
infested areas. Also, I think there's a lack of leadership skills and programs to upskill the youth in terms of them trying to gain access to the employment sector and actually being given opportunities to grow in their either career paths or their chosen career paths or a career path that may interest them basically.
Very, very important to note. And you touched on something that's very, very important: youth unemployment. It remains one of the country's biggest challenges. Young people, mostly, the ones that are affected. What does that reality mean for a generation that's trying to build its future, where economically able, young, energetic people are just not given the space, to be part of the working environment, to contribute to the economy? What do you think that does to a whole generation, and also the impact of it, 20, 30 years on, when you have people that have graduated 10, 15 years ago, but they've never held a solid job?
Yes, look, that is actually it's a valid and a very good point that you actually brought up because when I was at the youth parliament on Monday, there was one particular woman who was discussing how she finished the LLB degree, and that was about 7 years ago, and she is still currently trying to find employment for that. So obviously, that is only one person that I encountered on Monday, but I know many people like that. You know, social workers, doctors. Um, People who have studied like administration or BCom or anything like that, and they are even up till today, years later, they are still having problems finding those types of employment opportunities. And I think there needs to be a change in basically the way that companies are hiring and upskilling people, because generally if you are a youth and you've came out of university or out of school now and you are trying to look for an employment opportunity, there's always a barrier that you are facing, either when it comes to something like qualifications or experience. Those are the two main barriers that the youth are facing. So a company will generally proceed to take someone who has experience. When usually when they advertise posts and stuff like that, they are looking for people who's got 2 years or 5 years experience. But in that same breath, how can you expect a youth who has just come out of school or just come out of varsity to have 5 years experience when they haven't been given the opportunities to gain that experience? So I think that's one of the big underlying issues that we are facing when it comes to youth development and youth employment. We, as the Al Jama-ah Party specifically, we believe that there should be programs that are established by the national government and that are overseen by sorry, not parliamentary, but like a youth civil society, such as the South African Society, South African Youth Council, and those kinds of things. So we believe that what's required is more strategic partnerships between various departments of government, state-owned enterprises, and also private companies and entities such as the NYDA and CEDA to push
Mm,
forward youth development and youth employment, and just to basically assist the youth by developing programs that are aimed at education, funding, and upskilling, just so that they could bridge the gap between youth unemployment and engagement and the increasing employment rate, basically.
very important. The conversation around young people being apolitical, not having the desire to be part of the discourse about what's happening in the country, whether it's around current affairs or being involved in civic organizations or youth, organizations and political parties. How much of it is also a factor in young people going largely ignored. And is the onus on young people? Are we to blame for that? The fact that we are not as involved, as engaged as maybe previous generations, like the generations of maybe 1976, and what we saw maybe in the 2012s 2013s with the fees must fall generations. Have we lost that, where young people are able to organize and try to force change essentially?
Look, at the end of the day, I don't think the problem rests solely on young people. I think it rests on their trust within the government. So generally, we have a very one-sided view when it comes to politics, particularly as the youth, right? So I think that we need to have more programs aimed at educating potential voters as to the importance of their voting and their voice, basically. So there's many issues that are faced when the incorrect people are elected into office, and also the civic duty and accountability that goes hand in hand with electing officials into office who are able to follow through in establishing those types of initiatives aimed at empowering the youth and encouraging our involvement, basically. So I think that could be a point that could be pressed on, but also it's not also entirely the government's fault, because us as the youth also have to stand up. We have to say, look here, we have to create a narrative and a dialogue to say, look here, we believe that you guys are not doing enough to empower us. We believe that you guys are not doing enough to provide us access to education and to job opportunities, basically. And if we look at the context of the 1976 uprising, and like you said, the fees must fall in 2012, 2013, going forward from that, right? We're dealing with a similar issue, but at this point in time, it's more got to do with not necessarily human rights violations and racism, but it's got to do more with the difference, the different access between different classes of people, or social
Mm,
classes of people, basically. So it gets to a point where those people who are coming from underprivileged communities or impoverished communities, maybe they are coming from schools that don't have access to resources for textbooks or computers, or maybe even teachers, or maybe they've got overcrowded classrooms. Those are all issues that we need to address, because not all children are the same. Not all youth learn the same way. There are youth who have problems trying to grasp onto a concept, who may need further assistance in just bettering their understanding of certain concepts. But at the end of the day, we do also need to take some sort of accountability as the youth, because we are not pushing a narrative forward where we are demanding that the government look after us the same way that they are looking after, the foreign nationals who are investing in the country's economy, and those kinds of things. So there are a lot of opportunities that can be provided for the youth, but those issues need to be addressed by the government at the national level. They need to open up a dialogue, and also establish a budget to be able to do those things for the youth. And I
mm,
think the most effective way to do that is to have like a youth, a body that is established for the youth, by the youth, and that is represented by the youth, to affect that change within the country, basically.
very important. You spoke on accountability from the youth perspective, and I want to touch on young people like yourselves who are in these youth league structures, in political parties. I had a conversation with my colleague some time ago around young people, when they are maybe in student bodies and in organizations, in universities and community organizations and so forth. They would be very, very vocal. You'd feel like we have a generation of young people who, if given the opportunity, and are given the right positions, could force change and could hold government and authority accountable. But then, I don't want to name any names, but then then they gave me a few names of, the fees must fall generation, and how many of them found themselves in these political parties after they left university, and they were essentially given these backbencher positions, whether it's in parliament or it's in party structures, and their voices were silenced in a way, and they also got comfortable with some of the creature comforts that those positions come with, that you don't hear those voices and those strong sentiments about accountability from the generations that are older, because they are now within those structures. Yourselves, I mean, how much of a problem is that when you have young people who get swallowed by political parties, by business structures, and they forget the mandate of the young people of the country?
Yes, look, that's also a very important thing that you actually brought up. So I think the underlying issue that you're looking at there is most likely it's in relation to governance, right? So I think they need to have some updated policies and procedures in terms of international organization for standardization, which may then assist the youth in not only education and employment, but also like to develop skills and basically just social development. So generally, there needs to be some sort of authoritative body that is established to determine who has the right to make decisions on behalf of the youth and how to affect change, which can be implemented immediately. Right. So obviously, we understand that there is a certain there's only certain things that you can do within a specific time frame. Right. But if you can see action on it within 6 to 12 months, and you can say, look at in us doing this, we've affected and we've changed the lives of 1,000 youth this year or 5,000 youth this year. It might not seem like a lot, but at the end of the day, it is a lot, because those are 5,000 youth who now have opportunity for education, for employment, and those kinds of things as well. And then they also need to look at how at the decision making process, right? So the establishment of rules and procedures used to formulate and implement strategies in order to affect change. We need to look over that again and see if there is not a way that we can update that for more engagement from the youth. And then, as you were speaking about, like accountability, right? I feel like there's also a need to establish an obligation to report on performance within parliament and political parties, and so that they can behave in an ethical manner and take like responsibility for actions where performance and delivery can be held accountable by elected youth representatives. So those youth representatives should basically they should be representing the youth as a whole. They should not be it should not be based around them representing a specific political party. It should be used as a narrative so that they can establish a platform for the youth to to be developed and to get access to such resources, basically.
No, very, very important. Farid Fakir, youth leader of the Al Jama-ah party. Thank you so much for chatting to us. I think this was a very, very engaging conversation, one that's very, very important, and one that young people definitely need to listen to, because it's imperative. I think it's time that young people take up spaces, and first hold those that are in high positions accountable, but also hold ourselves accountable because of our shortcomings. So really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Shalelo.
Pleasure is all ours. And with that, we've come to the end of today's edition of News and Views. Thank you so much for staying with us for the past 2 hours and 3 minutes. I'll be back with you again tomorrow for the Thursday edition of News and Views. And just a short reminder that this weekend is finally happening, the second annual Soweto Walk for Gaza. This is a Salami Day initiative. It's going to be kickstarting at the Regina Mundi Church out in Soweto, and our ending point is at the Soweto Mosque. Join us for a solidarity walk for the people of Palestine, for the people of Soweto, and for the oppressed people of the world, drawing very, very strong parallels between Gaza and Soweto, and very, very imperative, especially considering the fact that we are in a very special month here in South Africa, Youth Month, which holds quite historical significance. And it's a month of solidarity, it's a month of resistance. And this walk, at least for me, is a show of resistance, a show of solidarity between the young people of Soweto and the young people of Gaza. There's a shared history and there are shared common struggles to this day. So we're going to be kickstarting the walk again at the Regina Mundi Church at around 7:30. Please be there. There's no registration process. There's nothing too hectic. Just show up with your placards, your flags, your kafias on the 20th of June. So this Saturday at around 7:30, we're going to be kickstarting the walk at Regina Mundi Church and ending off at Soweto Mosque or Lamini Mosque. So going to be a nice short walk. And then after that, there's going to be a type of activities at the mosque that you want to be a part of. So really excited for this happening this weekend. If you need any more information, you can send us a WhatsApp on 061 rather 061 766 0355. That's 061 766 0355. Otherwise, thank you. I'll be back with you again tomorrow. Shap shap.
Soweto, it's time to stand together for justice, peace, and solidarity. Join us for the annual Soweto Walk for Gaza, taking place on Saturday, the 20th of June at 7:30 a.m. The walk will begin at the historic Regina Mundi Church and proceed to the monumentous Lamini Mosque, bringing together people of all faiths, backgrounds, and communities in a powerful show of unity and support. Bring your family, friends, and fellow residents as we walk together for a common cause. Let your voice be heard and your presence counted. That's the annual Soweto Walk for Gaza, Saturday, the 20th of June at 7:30 in the morning, starting at Regina Mundi Church and ending at Lamini Mosque. Together we walk, together we stand, together we show solidarity.